What anime fan hasn't dreamed of making their own anime at least once? Probably a lot, especially those who aren't exactly blessed in the creativity department, but still, there are always a few who would see it as a dream come true. And one of them actually did it. Gigguk, known also simply as Garnt. From anime fan to Anituber to anime creator, it sounds like something straight out of a feel-good movie with the message keep following your dreams. But here's the question, should fans always become creators? Well, it depends. Honestly, when I first heard about Baan and saw that Gigguk was listed as the original creator, a little red flag went up. It's not that I dislike him, far from it. I rarely agree with his takes on anime, but I like his humor and I respect his, let's say, eclectic taste. Still, when someone hasn't really put out much in terms of original fiction, you can't help but wonder how much actual storytelling experience do they have. And after watching internet creators like VivziePop turn their passion projects into big productions that look great but stumble narratively, let's just say my expectations were low. So going into Baan, Otona no Kyoukai, I wasn't worried, I was prepared. Low expectations means no disappointment, right? And after watching the 18-minute long story, I can say I am surprised. Positively surprised. First of all, I did not expect an one-episode story. From the synopsis, I thought it would have at least a few episodes, but nevertheless, the moment I learned about the length, I was quite confused, but still, of course, wanted to give it a chance. So, a day after the video came out on YouTube, I watched it the moment I felt ready for it. I haven't watched any videos or streams where Garnt talked about his anime. I wanted to go in blind, knowing only the synopsis and the poster to have as a pure of an impression and interpretation of the show as possible. The visuals, solid, nothing groundbreaking, but polished. The animation quality was good, and while one artsy scene between the main characters when they first met felt a little awkward rather than profound, overall, it looked okay. The next element you get to experience at almost the same moment as the visuals is the music. I feel like a lot of people underestimate the power the soundtrack can hold. I honestly believe that if the music was bad or unmemorable, the show itself would lose half of the charm it has. But of course, one person I would never doubt about making music for anime is Kevin the Goat Penkin. He just keeps on creating such an emotionally filled OST that I just can't stop glazing him. Definitely one of the best elements from this production. When it comes to voice acting, there is not that much to say. I watched the version with Japanese dubbing. I had a thought to rewatch it in English, but considering how little dialogue there was, I didn't bother to do that in the end, so I don't have an opinion on that. And when it comes to Japanese voice actors, they did good. Honestly, it rarely happens for them to fumble, so I didn't expect anything less. So now that we have the technicalities behind, let's talk about the story itself. It is simple, but not in a bad way. I mean, the episode is like not even 18 minutes long if you cut out the credits, so to try to get into a more detailed story would be like shooting yourself in the knee. I truly respect Garn and the team who worked on the project for making a good call, making this first ever project short and simple. To test out the waters instead of jumping out with big guns and putting time into something that in the end becomes one huge confusing mess, just like VivziePop did with Has Been. It is clear that the message sent throughout the story is quite personal for Gigguk, but at the same time one many can relate to. Sometimes we think that leaving our past behind, or hometown or culture will completely change us, that we will erase it, but the truth is, this part will always and forever remain. No matter how much we think we can get rid of it, our upbringing is a huge part of what kind of person we grow into. Sometimes we need to move on, find a place for ourselves, and for some it works well, and while they remember where they came from, there's nothing wrong in finding home and family in an entirely new and unfamiliar place, like in the case of Daichi. In contrast, when Rin tried to do the same, it didn't make her happier. Her need for change was more forced than free-willing. She felt guilt due to her past and convinced herself to be a burden despite no one other than her thinking it. And although at some point she felt like she was getting better at fitting in, deep inside she knew that she was not where she was supposed to be. Though you could never know what her future is, as we can change with time, but our upbringing will always and forever stay the same. So after I was done with the episode, out of curiosity, I checked on the reviews on my anime list to see a few of the negative ones, saying that the story isn't clear or something wasn't explained. I was a bit confused, not gonna lie. Sure, there were many unexplained elements, but those weren't crucial to understanding the message. I think what confused most was the sequence of saving the egg, but what and why it all happened wasn't important at all. Of course you can get curious, and I see it more as an element that could push you into learning more about Thai legends and mythology, but I can understand how many wouldn't like that. I personally am a fan of digging deeper, so Gigguk, if I ain't finding anything about those creatures, I will be coming after you for fooling me, for thinking this was actually something authentic from your culture. Watch yourself. I have also seen complaints about Daichi's intentions not being clear, which, man, the lack of media literacy strikes again. Maybe I should stop complaining about fictional stories explaining everything out loud to the audience when 90% of the people apparently wouldn't get it without literal explanations. Well, if any of you had an issue about understanding Daichi's choices, let me quickly explain how I perceived it. The guy didn't feel good where he was at in life. Clearly, there were a lot of expectations put on him by the environment, despite him not being interested in following into his family's footsteps. That's why he left to find himself, discover an entirely different world, where he found not only home, but also purpose in life. That's it. What exactly is unclear here? Then we have Rin, and apparently her decisions weren't clear to some people either, so once again, let me explain. At a young age, she had a big responsibility put on her, bigger than any child should carry. To help her, Daichi took a part of this burden. He saw it in positive light, as his purpose, but through time, Rin saw herself being a burden to him, like I mentioned before. Therefore, she forced herself to move away and become independent to not trouble her caretaker anymore. It was hard on her at first, but her family was constantly watching over her, though she was unaware of the fact. Surely, things got better on the outside, she got used to her work and managed to befriend her co-workers, but on the inside, her inner feelings were getting worse, which she realized only after talking with her aunt and seeing a video dedicated to her from Daichi. And you know what? You don't even have to interpret it the same way I do. But the fact that we are able to make a clear interpretation is what shows that this story has more than enough of a structure to have things left unexplained, if they are not crucial to find a message. But to not praise the show too much, I do have a small nitpick about Baan. Sometimes they could just talk less, which is funny because a big chunk of the anime does not have any dialogues in it. Overall, there weren't too many situations where I thought you didn't have to say that, but there were a few. One of them at the very beginning when Daichi said something along the lines of "I wish you stopped snooping around my PC" when he was talking about his mother. It just felt unnecessary. His face already gave away his disapproval of the situation, so why saying it out loud to yourself? Well, I guess it is quite a Japanese approach in writing scenes, but just as I was about to praise the show for not saying too much, that happened, so it irked me. The other moment that I wish was a bit differently played was the talk between Rin and her aunt. In this case, it wasn't even about saying too much, it was about pointing out something that didn't need that. When the line "we Youthanians cannot hide our feelings" was said out loud by the aunt character, she also pointed at the wing-like features of their race. It truly ruined the moment for me. You see, I think most of the audience didn't have issue noticing the change in color of Rin's hollow elements, so for me saying the line out loud without pointing at that directly would work much better, as even though someone could not catch it, it would work as a beautiful metaphor of your family always knowing how you feel, despite how much you try to hide your true feelings. They know you so well that they will always see through this facade. By making it entirely literal, I felt like the true charm of this metaphor was ruined. So what is my final opinion? If you try to be a little stalker, you could have easily checked what score did I give it on my anime list, and you may be a bit confused as to why I gave it a 7 out of 10 if I didn't have many complaints about it. First of all, 7 out of 10 is actually a good score, so I believe. And second of all, despite Baan being overall okay, it is far from memorable. If it wasn't created around a content creator whose career I have been following for a while, I would have probably skipped watching that, or maybe I would have watched it but forgot about it immediately. It doesn't feel special enough as an individual story, and I am sure it doesn't help that I am not in the group of people who could relate to the message, thus why such a score. I'm still proud of Gigguk and the entire team for creating Baan, and I'm immensely jealous. I wish my stories had a chance of becoming an anime, so Garnt, if you by an extreme slim chance see these and you plan on making more anime, I'm here very much unemployed and ready to share my creative ideas. Overall, it is an amazing thing to see journey of a guy who started off judging anime only for now for his anime to be judged. Absolute cinema. I hope we will see more of those kinds of projects, not only from Garnt and Geeks Plus, but also other content creators. I'm glad that Japan is opening out and giving many opportunities to artists and writers from all around the world. Maybe one day I will achieve something as grand with my ideas. Guess I need to keep on working harder and harder with hope to reach that goal.